Measure a point 142 mm back from the forward bulkhead and make a mark on the top plank. Now mark and cut a plank to reach from the mark you just made and overhang the forward bulkhead by a few millimeters. Bend it to match the slight curve of the frames at this point. Now cut a second plank to the same length, bend it and glue and pin it into position. You will need to angle the pins downwards so that they go into the frames. Make a pencil mark 210 mm back from the ends of the planks you have just fitted. Cut a plank to fit from the pencil mark to the centre of frame 26 and glue and pin the plank into position. Fit another plank from frame 26 to the stern of the model, then using your card template as a guide to cut off the end of the plank that overhangs the stern. Complete a third row of planking that stretches from the marked point to the stern with the two lengths of planking joining at frame 24. Draw a pencil mark 158 mm from the front of the planks you have just laid. Measure a plank from this pencil mark to the stern and then another 2 layers of planking, but do not worry about the height of these reach, as further planks will be added to the top of the bulwarks later in the assembly. If the bulwark is not high enough, you can correct it by adding a thin strip of planking on the top. Cut a length of planking to match the other planking, then trim its width to the appropriate amount to extend the bulwarks over 14 mm. Now check the height of the planking between frames 17 to 21. The plank should be level with or higher than the pencil marks you made in stage 28. Measure the height of the bulwarks at frame 22. It should be at least 19 mm above the top deck support bracket. Use the same process to raise the height of the bulwark if necessary, and repeat for the other side. Bend a plank to the curve of the bow, ensuring that it is in contact with the frames. The curve of the hull means that there will be a small gap between the new plank and the existing ones. Make a pencil mark where the gap is widest, in this case at frame 13. If you bend the next plank and try it in position, you will almost certainly find that the gap is over half a plank's width, which indicates that a drop of plank is required, and that can be seen on page 134 of your instructions. Start by defining the gap that will be filled by a pair of planks. Use 2 short pieces of planking material to act as spaces and temporarily pin them against the first plank you fitted running across frames 17 and 19. Use the plank you tried in the previous page as a temporary edge guide to the next 2 planks. Loosely pin one end above your 2 spaces, loosely pin the other end at the bow, leaving about 2.5 mm between it and the plank below. The dropper must end where the gap is 1 plank wide. Use the end of a small piece of plank to test the gap over each frame. Pin the temporary plank into one where the end just fits the gap. Now hold 2 planks side by side to find out where the gap starts to narrow. Mark this with a pencil arrow and show where you need to start tapering the planks. Remove the lower of the 2 spacer pieces ready to fit the first plank. Bend the first plank to fit the curve of the bow, ensuring that it is long enough to run from frame 17 to beyond the point you found in step 3, where the dropper will start. Transfer the mark you made in step 4 to the new plank. Now taper the plank that you have just marked off, leaving the end width of 2.5mm, and trim the plank to this line. Cut the stern end of the new plank to finish over frame 17, 1 frame forward of the previous joint. Pin it into place, gluing it onto the existing planking as well as to the frames. You can now remove the second spacer and fit a straight piece of plank in line with the one you've just fitted, extending the layer of planking back from frame 17 to end over frame 24. Using the same method as in steps 6 to 8, fit a second plank onto the gap under the temporary plank, staggering the end joint by 1 frame again, in this case so it finishes over frame 16. Remove the temporary plank and cut the tapered ends of the planks over the frame. The cut should be at right angles to the plank so it may not necessarily follow the line of the frame. To make the dropper, bend a scrap of plank in a gentle curve to fit the bow and trim it to fill the tapering gap. Glue and pin the shaped dropper plank into place.